Tons of new details about Raphael Bob-Waksberg's Long Story Short just dropped at the Annecy Film Festival. Long Story Short is Bob-Waksberg's first Netflix animated follow-up to BoJack Horseman. It releases August 22nd, and I'm really excited about it. And I think the most important takeaway from a lot of this information is that this is going to be a very different show than BoJack Horseman. He is not trying to recreate that magic, but trying to continue to innovate and do something new in the same way that BoJack did way back when. In addition to panels and screenings at the Annecy Festival, Bob-Waksberg has done a few interviews as this press has come out, and there's a lot of great information in there, so let's go over it. I particularly liked this quote from him at Annecy. He said, "On one hand, it is an animated family comedy like Bob's Burgers or King of the Hill, that kind of show. We have 2 parents, 3 kids, but the way we're telling stories is a little different, in that we're traveling back and forth through time, not by using a time machine, just in the way we're telling stories. So in the first episode, we get to meet these kids as kids, and then in the next episode, we jump to the future and they're adults with kids of their own." So I particularly like this insight that the first episode they're kids and the second episode far in the future while they're adults. And I expect that the show is probably going to be jumping back and forth through time to emphasize certain aspects of these characters in their lives. So we're going to see stuff from when they're kids, then we're going to see stuff from when they're adults, and I imagine that those things will connect in certain ways. Unlike BoJack, this focuses more directly on family and identity and the passage of time without using parody or satire. So this show is actually trying to explore the intricacies of family and the nuances of family by showcasing a variety of time periods within one family's life. A lot of people have compared this to the show This Is Us. I haven't really watched This Is Us, but I imagine that Raphael Bob-Waksberg will have somewhat of his own take on this idea. Also, very pointedly not going to be parody or satire like BoJack was. This is going to be a more earnest, down-to-earth family sitcom. It isn't going to be directly autobiographical, but it is largely based on Raphael Bob-Waksberg's life, and the show is going to follow a Jewish family over many years. It starts with a bat mitzvah for one of the kids and explores personal and cultural change over all of the time in which we explore with this one family. Raphael Bob-Waksberg also says this show is exploring Jewish identity beyond faith. It emphasizes culture, history, and personal connection. This specific insight that the first episode is their kids and the second is that they're adults is kind of crazy, because I kind of expected that maybe it would be more of a straightforward, like, we're going through time very quickly over the course of one season. But the idea that it's going back and forth over the course of the season, I think makes for much more interesting storytelling, connecting various events in these characters' lives in different time periods to the same thematic messages and ideas. A lot of this idea also stemmed from Bob-Waksberg wanting to experiment with the fact that these things are often binge released, especially on Netflix. They're binge released and everyone is watching all the episodes at one time, basically. He was looking at these shows that have 100 to 200 episodes and realized that you really grow with the characters as it goes, and you really form a connection to them because you see them grow over time. And he wanted to see if you could sort of fast forward that effect. Here's what he said: "That's harder to do with fewer seasons with shorter episode orders, which you see a lot of in streaming. On a show like this, the goal is to make you fall in love with the characters. Can you shortcut that a little by jumping around time and watching these characters grow up? Can you feel by the end of the first season that you've watched 5 seasons of this show? Can you feel that same kind of warmth that you feel with something you've seen 100 episodes of? That's the great experiment. Given the landscape of television right now, I'm probably not going to get 100 episodes. Is there a way to get some of that same effect?" I think this is a really cool idea, and also just kind of a realistic one. Most of these animated shows on Netflix these days don't last very long. BoJack was kind of an anomaly that it lasted as long as it did. The only other show on Netflix to last remotely that long was Big Mouth, which just ended and I think got 8 seasons. So I feel like it's pretty realistic to look at this and say, we'll probably get 10 to 40 episodes if we're lucky. And can we fast track the connection to these characters by really showcasing a huge variety of time periods in their lives? He also talked about how a lot of the dialogue is overlapping and more conversational. So you might be watching a scene and there might be multiple conversations sort of happening at once, which is obviously going to be hard to follow if you're trying to follow everything, but he basically lays it out as though you should probably just follow whatever is interesting to you as you would in a normal conversation, and it's going to allow for rewatches so that you kind of catch more things and catch more nuances between these conversations happening on each rewatch, which is really exciting to me. A show that's jumping through time so drastically, and a show that is going to be rewarding on rewatch just through listening to the specific dialogue in these conversations. That's, for me, something that's really up my alley. I imagine imagine I'll be rewatching this season many times. Raphael Bob-Waksberg is also working once again with Lisa Hanawalt, who obviously designed BoJack Horseman and then went on to create Tuca and Birdie, which Raphael Bob-Waksberg helped with. And it seems like he gave her a little bit more free reign with the design here. The designs look a little bit more like her normal, usual, typical style that you find in her comic books and her art. And he really only gave her one direction here, which was we wanted it to not look like BoJack or Tuca. We didn't want it to be mistaken as a spin-off and feel like BoJack can walk in any minute. That was the main guidance I gave her. I've seen a lot of people criticize the art style here. I find it very charming, especially in a world where all animated adult sitcoms look kind of the same and look so similar and aren't particularly interesting in design. I think this is a really charming, lovely looking show, even if it is a little bit more simplistic and non-detailed. I particularly love the things that Raphael Bob-Waksberg has to say about television and adult animation in general, and the fact that adult animation tends to succeed when it's embracing originality more, which you might not realize these days because every adult animated show that's being greenlit seems to be a revival or reboot of old shows, but that's just kind of the entire nature of the industry right now. But he had this to say, which I really liked. I did feel a little bit in the development and pitching of this show, more so obviously than when I pitched BoJack, that I was the brand here. I do feel it was a bit safer for Netflix to be able to tell their audience from the creator of BoJack Horseman, but I also feel like in adult animation TV, it's not as IP focused. If you look at all the wild successes in adult animation, and they're all original ideas. Look at Fox. The Simpsons is a brand now, but it was an original. Look at Seth MacFarlane's shows, and Bob's Burgers, King of the Hill. Rick and Morty was not IP. In the adult animation space, it's actually the opposite. And I think this is very true. Obviously, a lot of these shows end up being long running, and that's kind of the goal for a lot of these studios, is to have a Simpsons that can last 40 years, which is obviously unheard of. But now, you know, we've got Futurama being renewed, we've got King of the Hill being renewed, we've got Family Guy and American Dad are going on for decades now. Bob's Burgers is already on season like 16. These things run forever, but they were originals when they started. You can't just keep rehashing the same old stuff. You're going to have to start creating new things that can go on to live this long like these other shows. Raphael Bob-Waksberg also went on to talk about how a lot of these adult animated sitcoms, the ones that are mostly successful, Family Guy, South Park, The Simpsons, they've run for a long time, but they are all kind of cut from a similar cloth, and it kind of has made people think adult animation has to be one thing. And I really liked this quote about what BoJack was able to do. For a long time, adult animation meant Family Guy, South Park, The Simpsons. Our goal was to push out our elbows a bit, to make room for something more vulnerable, more surprising, which I think is a perfect way to describe BoJack Horseman, especially if you look at that first season that kind of felt like it was trying to be more like these other adult animated sitcoms and sort of Trojan horsed a new tone, if you will, because it initially started as this sort of funnier, raunchier, sillier comedy, and it really started to implement more of these serious and, again, more vulnerable ideas into the story. So I think that show is kind of an important one in the ways that it helped adult animation expand its scope in what it can be without, you know, just trying something completely new and fully experimental, which I think is then allowing him to have the leeway to tell these kinds of stories with Long Story Short, doing a family sitcom, as a lot of these shows already are, but in a completely new way. I also really loved what he had to say about the rise of AI and what's actually exciting about constraints and working with other people and not just getting exactly what you expect spit out to you by a robot. I could see a world in which I had an idea for a show and I could write up a paragraph about it, and then a machine could kind of spit it out exactly the way I was imagining it should. I don't think we're there yet, but I could see that scenario. But I don't want to show exactly the way I'm imagining it. I get to be surprised by the brilliance and the experience of these other people that have worked on it. And that's why the end credits for Long Story Short say this program was made by humans, which I absolutely love. And he's absolutely right. I think the exciting thing about collaborating on a project isn't just making the thing that's in your head come to life. It's all of the interesting and exciting avenues that you didn't expect to go down because you're using other people's experience and ideas, and you're collaborating to make something big, cool, exciting that you never would have been able to do on your own, which is something that a robot could never do. All that to say is that I'm really, really excited about Long Story Short. This is probably my most anticipated show of the year. August 22nd can't come soon enough. I'm excited to just binge the crap out of this thing and watch it again and again and see how much I get out of rewatch on rewatch on rewatch. It sounds like something new and exciting that I can really get behind. But I want to know what you guys think about all of this new information about Long Story Short. Let me know below in the comments. Are you excited as I am? And we'll talk about it more as more comes out. I think we'll probably get a trailer before too long. All right, peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.